Welcome to SAS, short and sweet tips for the business sector from the Case Mastermind Group.
Yeah.
So that should hopefully transition us into our next tip.
Yes, hopefully it should. So our next tip is around inductions, and it's around what can you do actually to send the right and lasting impression on somebody as you're about to employ them. You know, you've got to offer stage, you found your perfect candidate, but what you're now thinking about is, well, they've not even started with us yet, so what can we do in order to make sure that we send the right first impression that makes them want to stay? Because it's not just about recruiting people, it's about what can we do to really integrate this person effectively into our organization. It's a daunting prospect starting a new job. No matter how confident you are, I would argue that it's a really, really daunting prospect. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to come up with something that's going to integrate somebody quickly and effectively and that works for them. So my first tip is to have a plan in the first place, because you wouldn't believe how many organizations I talk to that don't even have an induction plan. So you've got to get the basics right, which is, and I know this is going to sound really Jack and Jill, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is make sure that the person's got a place to sit, a desk even, and make sure they've got all the right equipment that they need to do the job. You know, even if you're employing somebody that's not necessarily going to have a desk, maybe they're going to work remotely, then make sure they've got the right equipment to do the job. Those are the basic things that you absolutely need to think about even before they've started with you. But have a plan. It's definitely my absolute must-have. You must have a plan, even if it's a bare bones of a plan. Please have a plan. And on that plan should be things like, well, you know, what training is this person going to need to be able to do their job effectively? What are the key deliverables as well, actually, that I've come up with in my head as Mr. Recruiter? What are the things I'm going to judge this person's success by in 3 to 6 months' time? And have I built that introduction plan? Have I built a way that they're going to get to that quickly? So have a think about that as well in terms of your plan. If you can, think about assigning them a buddy. So somebody that's a go-to person for them if they've got any challenges or any issues that they might face, somebody that they know that they can go and ask those questions to. We coach all of our new employees, new appointees with our customers. We're all trained coaches in our organisation, and so we coach people. We're classed as an external coach for them for the first 3 months of their employment. If you can do that, if you can assign somebody an external coach, for them to talk through anything that they've got going on that they really don't feel that they can go to their new employer with, some stuff that they might just need some help with, then that's even better for you. But on their first day, I would give them a plan of what you plan to do for them in their first days, weeks, months, but also ask them before they're joining you. What would work for you here? You know, what do you want to do in your first few days, weeks, months? And even ask somebody that's just been through the same induction plan a few weeks, months, or whatever ago, and see, did that work for them? And if there's any improvements that can be made. You know, there's no better way to keep improving something than speaking to somebody that's been through a similar process. And if you've already put somebody through an induction plan and you thought it worked really well, well, then it might actually not have worked that well. So let's check in with the person that's just been through it and see if it did work well and what improvements can be made. But give that person a plan on their first day. Give them a program of, look, this is where we're going to focus our attention with you on the first couple of weeks. And it might involve product training. It might involve time with other departments, time with other people in that organization. But give them that time, because they can then have a sort of a much clearer idea of where their role fits into the wider context.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what you mentioned earlier, you were saying about making sure they've got a desk and a chair. And I've heard horror stories, people starting somewhere and they're just saying, oh, well, you better sort of sit yourself over there for the time being. And we'll try and get you a computer, we'll try and get you something so you can get up and running, and they end up...
Listen, it goes on much more than you would expect. You know, generally, most companies these days, that's certainly companies that I talk to, have got an induction plan in place. It might need a little bit of tweaking, and it might need tweaking for each individual person, you know, because let's face it, everybody learns at different rates. Everybody picks things up much quicker or much slower than others. And so your induction plan should be tailored towards the individual and towards the role. But that you've just mentioned, that's happened to me, you know, and you absolutely know that what's happened is that you've had your offer of employment, you've signed on the dotted line, and then you've been forgotten about until your first day. And then you're greeted by HR first day, and they're like, oh God, we forgot you were starting today. You know, that's just not the way that you want to be leaving a lasting impression on somebody when you're bringing them into your organisation, because you're already on the back foot if you're at that point.
Absolutely. You don't feel too wanted when all that starts happening.
Yeah, the more that you can do to prepare, and the more that you can do to involve them, I would say, in that induction plan, to get them to give you feedback on what's going to work for them. I mean, obviously it needs to be that you need to get the balance right, and you want to be giving them some information as well. But I think it's all about what can we do to make this, you know, give the right impression to this person on their first day, to make them want to stay with us, and to help them to integrate quickly, and to make it less daunting than it usually is starting a new job.
Absolutely. And you touched on feedback earlier as well, and feedback, you know, is so key. Whatever you do, if you can get feedback, it's just such valuable information that can really give you the basis to work on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's real. You know, you can try and make assumptions about how things are going, but there's absolutely no better way than to ask questions.
Yeah, and to do that in an environment as well that is that you can give good, honest feedback, because I think the biggest fear is, you know, you still got this, you know, the draconian organisation is gonna, you know, I can't say too much or they're gonna kick me out the door, you know.
No, it needs to be done in such a way that the person feels comfortable to be able to give that honest feedback. But it could just literally be something as simple as, look, you know, we're learning this as well. We're trying to make our inductions the best that they could possibly be. And so if we can involve you in that, the person that's just been through it, warts and all, please tell us how it was, and ensure that they are in a place where they can feel comfortable giving that feedback. I mean, it's ridiculous to ask for feedback, but then not be happy about the feedback that you get. Don't ask for it in the first place if that's how you react to it. I mean, it's silly, I know, and we laugh, but it happens so much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, someone says, "We want your honest feedback," and then all of a sudden you find yourself in front of a desk with someone, and it's like, oh, right, I've been reading your feedback, and we've got a few issues to raise. And it's like, whoa, don't ask for it in the first place if that's your attitude. So yeah, you've got to be open-minded about the whole process, haven't you?
You have to treat this as whatever feedback you're asking your either potential new employee or your existing employees, whatever feedback you're asking them for, whether it's inductions or not, is a gift. They're giving you a gift of how to make something better for the next time. And if you approach it in that way, then you shouldn't be bothered about asking for feedback. No,
absolutely. No, I think that's critical. And you know, that induction process, it's not induction. People think of induction as, oh, right, your first week we'll do blah, blah, blah. An induction process is, you know, it's weeks, months down the line. And
it can a long time to get through an induction, obviously role dependent, depending upon how quickly you want this person to hit the ground running. But I think it needs to be ever changing, your induction program. Put it together, give it to the person that's starting with you, get their feedback on it, work with it, but keep having regular check-ins with that person throughout that induction. It may be that some of the stuff that's on there isn't working for them, or it needs to be done in a different way. There's no point in just giving it to them and then expecting it all to just work miraculously. You need to be keeping having regular check-ins with that person. You might give them a 2-week induction program and they need another 2 weeks because it's just not worked, or there's something that they need some extra time with. I mean, clearly, if things are taking too much time, there's obviously maybe a conversation needs to be had. But again, it's about getting the balance right between, should they be further on than this now, or is it fair actually? Do they need some more time? Get some feedback of the other people that they've been working with throughout that induction. You know, it's impossible to think that somebody is going to start on day one and make a difference straight away. There's so much stuff to learn when you're starting a new job that we take for granted when we're already working in an organisation, actually. We take for granted that people are going to know everything there is to know about us on their first day, and that's just not going to happen.
No, that's true. That's true. And I would assume there's some sort of element in there where you perhaps try and get the candidates into the right mindset that they can't come in and tell this new organisation in a couple of days how to, reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And I think we're all guilty of that. You know, we go in somewhere and we go, oh my goodness, they do that like that. They do that like that. That's terrible. What's going on? And your inclination is to go, oh, you stop doing that immediately and change. So you've got to have the bedding in period. So yeah, I think there's some good balancing points in there. And I think
there are. People may come into your organisation with much better ideas of how to do things just because you've been doing something or a process, or just because you've been doing something in a certain way for 10 years doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way. It absolutely may be the best way because you've done other tried and tested things and that's the way we do things here. But it may be that somebody comes in with completely fresh ideas about how to do things, and actually what they're saying, you know, you need to pay attention to it. So I think it's about being open-minded as well.
Yes, on both sides of the table, definitely. That there is that balance within the spectrum of it. That you've got to make a place where it's visually people can see you're open-minded and open and welcoming to new ideas.
Yeah.
So they've got that freedom to give it, because too many people sit on really good ideas because they've got that, I can't say too much. So yeah, that's a really good point. There's a real balance within that, I think.
There is.
Yeah.
People feel much more empowered if you actually take on board the things that they're coming up with, their suggestions. They also feel a lot more looked after and feel like you care about them. As I mentioned earlier on, candidates feel very uncared for throughout the recruitment process. So whatever you can do to make them feel like they're being looked after is always going to be a good thing. Yeah,
absolutely. And Sir Richard Branson summed that up when he says, train people well enough that they can leave, but make them feel so welcome that they want to stay, and I think
that's right.
That is the real core of business. And I think there's still so many places just missing out on that and don't truly show how much they value. They might actually genuinely value their employees, but not show it enough, and people will fall by the wayside because they just don't feel valued.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, okay. Well, that one took a bit longer, but that was my fault, so I take full responsibility for that. Quite a few questions I had to ask on that one. So, what is our next tip?
I think we've got to our tips.
That's fantastic. That's me not paying full attention. See, so I'm getting carried away. Carried away in there. I was enjoying that obviously way too much there. So that's brilliant. Thanks ever so much for those tips. Sorry, carry on.
All right, there is one thing actually that I suppose it's an overarching tip about all of the things that we've discussed, which is recruitment isn't easy, and people approach recruitment in thinking that it is, and thinking that they, you know, find key people and retain key people and it's an easy process to go through. It absolutely isn't. And so the best piece of advice that I can give any organization is, if you haven't got a dedicated recruitment function in your business, if you haven't got a recruitment manager, or you haven't got somebody that is dedicated to just doing recruitment, then bring an expert in. Because all too often when we work with businesses who are struggling, it's because they've expected their line manager or their department head to do their own recruitment, and it doesn't work. You know, your sales director should be being the sales director. He shouldn't be looking for his new recruiting his new sales manager and the sales team. That's not what he's there to do. He's there to be the sales director. And all too often time is taken up with these key people who are trying to do recruitment and they haven't got a clue where to start. So I suppose that's my overarching tip for the whole process is, bring an expert in if you haven't got a dedicated recruitment function in your organisation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, I've been there before, been in positions where, you know, I was a manager and all of a sudden I've got to start interviewing candidates. I'll be very honest, I haven't got a clue about to learn from the ground up. You know, we compiled a list of questions and various things, but you know, I look back on it now. At the time, you know, it seemed pretty good. Like most decisions, they're always really good when you first make them. It's only when you look back you realise they were a bad one. And you know, there's every man to his trade. If you pull in an expert in a field, they're going to do that job so much better. And companies look at, we're going to have to pay for that. Yeah, you are. But that's because then you're going to get the best candidate and it's going to work. So, you know,
that attitude that you've just said there about, well, we're going to have to pay extra for that, or we're going to even have to pay for that. Absolutely you are, because guess what? If you get it wrong, you'll pay for it over.
Yes.
So look at it from this. Yes, I might have to pay a little bit more, or I might actually have to pay somebody to do this. But you know what? It'll be money well spent if you get it right, because believe me when I say it'll be catastrophic if you get it wrong.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, couldn't agree more with that one. Couldn't agree more, definitely. Thank you for spending time with us today. This has been brought to you by the Case Mastermind Group. Please be sure to follow us in the links to this message. Please give your real, honest feedback on what you have just heard and share what you enjoyed or liked the best. We really do check the feedback that we receive. Please also share with your friends who you believe could benefit from it, just to show you care. To our listeners, remember, no matter where you are on the mountain of success, let's enjoy the journey together to the top. We will see you there, my friends.